Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Orange Zone. My name is Jackson Shock, alongside
DK.
Gone.
Josiah.
Gone.
Santi.
Gone.
Tobe.
Guys, we got a
Adu.
show. What are you doing?
Dude, who do we have on our team left? There's no basketball to talk about. We have no players.
Well, you know what? I understand your frustration. Come on, let me walk it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk. Hang on. Guys, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. All right. I know you're upset, and so is every Vol fan. But let's break down what we kind of got to deal with, starting with the guy that just entered the portal today, Luke, your personal favorite, who you talked about in that very spot. He's in the portal, Adu. Oh man, what are you gonna do? What do you have to say?
This one hurts me a little bit. I mean, we've seen a lot of our team go in the transfer portal or leave because they graduated. But Adu was one that kind of hurts me. And you know, our team this past season, we had a great shooter in Dalton Connect, and I was hoping we would have this developed big man in Adu. I was hoping he would come out of his shell this year and have next year be kind of his star year. And I was fully expecting that from him. But now seeing that he's in the transfer portal, that's not going to happen. And, you know, it's tough to see him go because I was really hoping to see him kind of be that guy that steps up next year once these guys are leaving and graduated, and he was going to be kind of that leader along with Zakai for our team going into next season. But, I mean, JP played pretty well against Purdue, so at least we're not fully gone in the tall person department. We got some people left, but it's tough to see Adu go in this way.
Yeah. Do you guys? I mean, do you have any? It's a tough topic. Do you have anything to say?
I could have seen this coming. We kind of saw him towards the last couple games of the tournament. He was sitting a lot more than he was during the regular season. We saw Awaka, who's another transfer.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
I know, rough week. He was also in the portal, he's getting in the portal, but we saw him get less minutes. So it's not unexpected, but we are, like you said, lacking in the tall person department now.
Cole, do you have any guess, like, where is he going to go? I mean, I felt like Tennessee would be a perfect place to kind of round out going to the sunset with Zakai, but now it's kind of like, what the heck, dude? We had something special. Yeah. Do you have any idea, like, kind of where he might want to go or anything along those lines?
No, I mean, I have no idea, but I think that, I mean, you look at other guys that have entered the portal, Tobe Awaka, Freddie Dillon, not Cameron Carr, DJ Jefferson. Like, they weren't getting any minutes, like starting minutes. But Adu was the one that was like, he was going to be a starter next year. He was going to play 25, 30 minutes every game. So this is the one that I think is the most confusing to Tennessee fans. But I think he's a really good player. I think he's going to be a hot commodity in the portal. I think a lot of teams are going after him. I could see him going to a national title contender probably for sure.
Well, hopefully that contender is Tennessee. Maybe this is all just a dream. Let's go to the other guy you guys have alluded to, Tobe Awaka. Gone. I understand it's frustrating. What are we missing in his game that, you know, we could have used next year? Obviously, he had great signs against Purdue, and you know, he may have fouled out pretty quickly. He was playing hard, but I mean, that's a tough leave.
The news of him transferring was probably the most shocking in my opinion, because what we're going to miss with him is a very physical guy that can kind of bounce around a little bit in his position. He can play down low. We saw him play a little bit against Zach Edey in the Purdue game, but you know, he's just a really physical player who I also thought was going to develop with this team. You know, sophomore, I was, you know, hoping he would, you know, get some more minutes this next year with the guys that graduated leaving. And I thought he was going to step into another leadership role as well. But once, you know, I saw he was gone, it's almost like, who do we have left a little bit? Like, so many people are gone, and then, you know, packed onto the Adu news, it's almost like, who do we have down there? And not many people right now.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, we just don't have any bigs really that are going to go and play. I mean, when Awaka entered, I mean, like I mentioned before, I mean, he wasn't really a starter. I mean, he was getting a lot of minutes towards the tournament. He played really good in that game against Purdue. But, I mean, you talked about that would be the most shocking. Adu was the most shocking for me. At least Awaka, you can see, oh, well, maybe he's going to go to another place. He's going to be a nailed-on starter. He's going to play 25, 30 minutes a game and maybe work his way to being a professional basketball player. He could have done that here. But, I mean, he's been here for 2 years, and he didn't really take that step this year that a lot of people were hoping. So maybe he wants to go somewhere else and get more minutes. But, yeah, I mean, the problem is when you have Adu and Awaka together, I mean, now we just don't have any bigs this year. And we're going to have to go get somebody in the portal. We're just going to have to.
Yeah. I
have an interesting question, actually, with Awaka that I'd like y'all's perspectives on. We got to remember, he entered the portal before Adu did. He didn't know, I mean, we can presume that he didn't know Adu was going to enter the portal. So his decision was, you know, we can assume on his own. I mean, with Adu now entering the portal, is there a chance he kind of comes back to Tennessee and drops his name from the transfer portal now that more people are gone?
I could see that happening for a few reasons. For one, Adu kind of was the star of the show this year.
In the big man department.
In the big man department, yeah, not Kinnett. But in the big man department, Adu was the star. He was the guy who was always out there. Awaka was kind of the sixth man off the bench. He was there. Besides Meshack, he was the sixth man off the bench. He would be in there, and he would be in for Adu. With Adu gone, I'd see it as a target. I'd see it as a possibility that he might want to come back because he knows this program. He's been here for 2 years, like you were saying, and it would be better for him. I don't know if it would be better, but I think it'd be more beneficial for him to come back to a place he's already known and be in a position where he can grow in a team that he already knows with.
Certainly, we would be happy to have him. We would be
Yeah.
more than welcome. I understand it was just a little joke. Test the waters. It's not funny. Come back. Let's go. Do you guys think? I mean, let's go. Kind of now that it feels like everybody's leaving. Do we think Meshack leaves? I mean, it feels like that could be a genuine
God, I hope
possibility.
not.
Colton, do you think he heads out?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to guess things like that. I mean, nobody thought Adu was going to enter the portal. Nobody thought Awaka was going to enter the portal. So, I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think he would be, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I think he'd be the biggest loss at any of those guys because I think he's the hardest guy to replace. His defense, he's one of the best on-ball defenders in the entire country. He didn't show offensively what he showed at the back end of 2 seasons ago. But I think next year he could really, really be that guy. I mean, he keeps the defense so good. I mean, I think if we lose him, he's going to be really, really hard to replace in the defensive end. So I'm praying that he does not enter the portal.
He's a major hustle player for us. Major hustle player.
I don't see why any reason he would even want to leave, right? Because behind Zakai, he was one of our greatest defenders last season, and he got a lot of praise from players and coaches and announcers throughout the country. So, I mean, I would vote that he would stay.
Now let's go. Let's wrap up. I mean, we just mentioned everyone that feels, everyone has left, essentially. Our boat is empty. But big picture, what are we missing as a whole between all the guys that have had it out? What's the biggest, I mean, whether it be defense, offense, what are we really missing in the wide open space, just on a team level?
I think we're missing some shooters. I think we don't really have.
Yeah, but that could be from seniors leaving too.
That could be from seniors leaving. We have Vescovy and Decay, who have been our shooters this past season. They've been the guy who, go down there, you need a three, you need to take over the game, they can do it.
Yeah.
We don't really have that. We've seen Zakai, Zakai can go down there and he can score 20, 25 points a game, but we don't have that. We don't have that two, and we definitely don't have that three. We have Cameron Carr, we have Gainey, who can, step up and fill the shoes, but we really need some quick offense players.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that with the amount of people that left, we're going to be lacking a lot. Scoring with DK leaving, defense with just people leaving. But I'm not too worried on the defensive end. People have talked about that a little bit. I'm not too worried about it because Rick Barnes is such a good defensive coach. I feel like he can take anybody who is competent enough to shuffle their feet on the floor and turn them into a good defender. So I'm not too concerned with our defensive efficiency. I feel like it's going to be very similar to this year. Physicality-wise, maybe go a little bit down, but defensive efficiency, I think we're still going to be kind of up there with how it was this season.
I mean, we're losing like pretty much everybody. So I mean, we need replacements in every single position other than point guard, as long as Zakai stays. So, but yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned the key. I mean, with DK, Vescovy, Josiah Jordan James, and those are a lot of three-point shooters we're missing. Those are a lot of guys that scored the bulk of our points outside of Zakai. So we really need to get another 3-4-2 guard in there. And a guy that hopefully can replace that scoring that we lack now with them not being there.
Now, have you guys eyed the portal at all? I mean, especially recently, it hurts to see our own guys in there. But have you eyed the portal at all? And if so, do you have anybody that you're kind of looking at like, hey, come on, let's hop in over here. We've got plenty of open spots and scholarships.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the transfer portal. It's my favorite thing to look at when it comes to college basketball. I mean, just seeing all these guys into the portal go different places, I think it's really fun as a neutral fan to see all these guys going different places. Maybe that's a hot take. I know a lot of people don't like the transfer portal, especially us right now.
Yeah.
But I really like Malik Dia from Belmont. He would be the one that I think is really, really likely to come here. He played freshman year at Vanderbilt, then transferred last year to Belmont, so he's played 2 years in Tennessee. I think he would be a really good replacement for Awaka or Adu, be that power forward, that four, or that center to come in. But I think when you look at the transfer portal, a lot of it is like, you got to be realistic. I mean, Tennessee's a big program, but when you look at some of these top guys in the portal, are we really top on their list? I mean, are we ahead of like the Dukes, the North Carolinas, the Kansas, the blue blood programs? No, I don't think so. So I think you have to look at those guys that have a connection to Tennessee, and maybe that can help them come here. And I think that Malik Dia is one of those guys for sure.
Now, fortunately, also, I don't mean to cut you off, but as those blue bloods and UConn and Kansas and all those guys start to fill their rosters, the good news is there will be leftovers, and I think that's where Tennessee kind of has to start corralling. Like, hey guys, we got a good program. Luke, go ahead. Who are you looking at in the portal?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm looking at a guy who's coming on a visit here soon. Darlingstone Dubar from Hofstra. he's a 6'8", 211 guard, big guy. He can shoot. He can drive to the paint. His physicality is there. He's a dual threat, and I think he'd be, a great addition to this program, guard-wise, because we need kind of all positions right now.
Absolutely. Zach, have you been looking at anybody specifically?
Nobody specifically. I've more just been looking at position players, or positions that we need to fill, like we were talking about. With DK leaving, that leaves a huge hole. But another thing you were saying that's interesting about the connection to Tennessee. It might not happen, but Zakai's brother, who does play for St. Peter's, maybe he comes to a bigger program. He is 6'4", and he is a pretty fast guard. He could be a replacement if he's pretty good.
Well, at this point, we're taking anybody. And fortunately, we are the house of the National Transfer Player of the Year, which is definitely, hey, we can build talent here. That wraps up this segment of the Orange Zone, though. Thank you so much for watching. If you're a transfer player, hey, we've got nice things in Tennessee. Come on, please stay with us. Anyways, we'll be right back here next week. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you. Peace.
Welcome to this week's edition of Rocky Talk. I'm your host, Sophie Starkey, alongside Matthew Slitsky and Riley Haltom. March Madness may be over, but we still got a lot of basketball to cover. Women's basketball has certainly taken off, especially after the recent national championship, and there are some big names about to enter the WNBA. So who are your top players going into the draft? Matthew, what do you think?
Well, you got to give a shout out to our very own Rakia Jackson, first and foremost, right? I think she's been slept on more than any player, right, this year for a variety of reasons. Some of it might have to do with because she's in Tennessee or they didn't get all the way to the national championship, right? but certainly a good and shifty player on the offensive end. Everybody's going to talk about Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese, right? The biggest player, in my opinion, is Cameron Brink. Okay? Nobody plays defense like Cameron Brink, right? Nobody. And defense wins championships, right? We say it all the time. Defense wins championships. And not only is she just tall, which is a commodity in women's basketball, she's 6'4", but she just does everything right. She's very, very good on the defensive end. She can move her feet. I'll give you some numbers because I'm looking at her right now. Offensively, she's 69th in points. She averages 17 a game on 51% shooting. That's 9th. Rebounds is 11.9, 2.8 assists, but 3.7 blocks. Okay, what does that tell you? Anybody can get blocks at that height. Sure. Number 1 in defensive blocks plus minus. Number 1 in total rebound percentage. Number 1 in block percentage. And number 2 in total defensive rating. What does that tell you? She can play defense. More than that, you don't want to drive. Similar like a Zach Edey, right? You don't want to go near the paint because you have to contort your shot, contort your body to just even get a shot in the air. It's very difficult. So when you're driving and you're trying to get to the paint and you know she's down there, you swing the other way. You turn around. And that's the presence she provides defensively.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the Cameron Brink shout out. She is phenomenal right now. You got to give the shout out to Caitlin Clark, obviously. Phenomenal shooter. She's going to be the first overall pick, and she's going to do incredible things with the Fever. No question about that right now. Camila Cardoso, center. She's going to be phenomenal in the league. I think definitely going to bring a post presence to probably the Sky, a team like that really just needs everything right now.
Maybe the best offensive rebounder in college basketball.
Absolutely, absolutely. She just uses her size so well, knows how to get into position, score those points. She's going to be a phenomenal player for whoever she ends up with, and I really do hope it goes to the Sky because they need a lot on that team right now. Very depleted roster for the Sky. Love that you shout out Rickea Jackson. She is easily the most disrespected player in women's college basketball. You look at all these graphics of all these stars. You've got, the Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark and, Camila Cardoso, all very deserved. But Rickea Jackson, who is right now projected to go higher than a lot of players, is nowhere to be found on these graphics of, the next great thing in the WNBA. It's ridiculous. Rickea Jackson deserves to be in those conversations, and anybody that was paying attention to women's college basketball last year could tell you. Because you've got players like, Elizabeth Kitley, Georgia Amore. Yeah. They didn't get very far in the tournament either. Virginia Tech isn't exactly this huge women's basketball brand. The Lady Vols are. And although, they didn't have the tournament success that they wanted either, Rickea Jackson was still the player and is going to be a top 3 pick in this upcoming draft.
She was injured, so that might have had something to do with it. But she can score anywhere she wants. She's very good at getting to her spots. She's very good at picking her spots, right? So when she gets to the places she wants to on the court, she's as good as anybody. In college basketball, she'll be as good as anybody in WNBA.
And she'll be a plus defender when she gets there. So
expect Caitlin Clark to change the WNBA game very similar to Sabrina Ionescu, too.
Absolutely.
The way she changed it, essentially bringing the three-point line back, she'll change it just the way Sabrina did.
Yeah. Great points, great points. Now let's look at the NBA. It's about playoff time, and some teams really got to lock in here. So who are you expecting the most out of in the playoffs? Matthew.
If you would have asked me yesterday, I would have had a different answer. The day before, I would have had a different answer. Every day, the seedings and the standings change. We've seen injuries more than any other season this year. It's just been a really wild season. You expect the most out of the team that just won an NBA championship. When you look out of the Western Conference, you look at the Nuggets. You look at the Clippers, who have done so well this year, even though they had a poor start after making the Harden trade. I'm looking at younger teams that have really made a good push. I'm expecting a lot out of them. That doesn't mean I expect them to win, but I'm expecting them to live up to the level that they've played at for the majority of the season. The Mavericks, right, who've got a good balance of young talent and veterans. The Magic, right? The Timberwolves, the Thunder, right? These are all teams that have got MVP caliber talent and have played like it all year long, and because of it, they're going to have home court advantage come playoff time. You have to expect those kinds of teams to get hot in a hurry.
Yeah, absolutely. In the East, you have to look at the Celtics as much as, there are questions about their success in the playoffs. With that type of regular season run, they're 15 games ahead of anybody in their conference. You have to carry that into the playoffs, or otherwise, what's the point, There's 0 point.
I'll tell you something. I know we talk about it all the time. I would put 5 teams in the NBA before I'd pick the Celtics. In the whole league, I'd pick the Nuggets, I'd pick the Clippers, I'd pick the Timberwolves, I'd pick the Heat, and I'd pick the Sixers before I pick the Celtics.
That being said, the expectation doesn't go away.
No, 100%.
They're expected to succeed in the playoffs.
They have the best record in the NBA.
Absolutely, and best offensive efficiency.
Right.
They're good defenders. You have to go and carry that success into the playoffs, because that's the goal at the end of the at the end of the day.
I
You
feel
want
like
the
we see it
championship.
every year, right?
Yep.
It's the same thing. Best team in the regular season on the offensive end specifically, and they go into the playoffs. And Jason Tatum, who's supposed to be the player of the year, player of the league, can't play in the playoffs, especially down the stretch. Fourth quarter basketball shrinks in the playoffs, shrinks when it matters most. Not a guy you want as your number one, in my opinion, on any team that aspires to win an NBA championship.
Absolutely. Also worth mentioning, Sixers with Embiid, different
back.
team.
Oh.
Different team.
Well, I've said it all year long. I think the Sixers are the best team in the NBA. Between depth, between talent, between having an MVP, and they're extremely well coached. Nick Nurse, top 3 coach in the NBA. That team is poised to win its first championship in a very long time.
Yeah, got to do it from the play-in though, as they sit right now. Still got 3 days of games to shift that, but right now in the play-in against your Heat. So tough matchup there, but also worth shouting out the
I would take
Heat.
the Sixers.
Worth shouting out the Heat though, because any team coached by Eric Spoelstra, they're gonna have a good shot in the playoffs. But beyond that, Lakers sitting in the play-in as well. Team with great defensive pieces. And you got the greatest of all time on your team. You can't write them off
I'm
at all.
expecting nothing different from last season.
Yep.
First round of the play-in, the Heat are going to lose to the Sixers just like they lost to the Hawks last year. And then they're going to go into the second round of the play-in, somehow win that one. Some player you've never heard of is going to have 35. And then they're going to go on the run like they normally do. I would pick the Sixers, though, over the Heat as it stands.
Fair.
So on the flip side, who are we thinking is in trouble?
Oh, who else? Right? There's really only one answer. There's no team that has been so poor this season than the Milwaukee Bucks, living up to expectations. It's not even close. It's not even close, right? It's like 1A and then 7C. It's not even close. And everyone has the coaching adjustments. Everyone's talking about injuries. It's the same team last year, but better, right? They struggled offensively last year. They were the best defensive team in the league. You had a runner-up defensive player of the year in Holiday and Lopez. You have a defensive player of the year in Antetokounmpo. And last year, defense was their whole shtick. This year, they can't play defense. All they got is offense. Right? You fire Griffin, who was 31-13. You bring in Rivers, who's got a 500 record at 17-17. So whatever. You talk about coaching, you talk about injuries, all that, whatever. Put it behind you. But they have talent. They have the pieces to win a championship. They have the depth to win the championship. Why can't they win? Because they have selfish player after selfish player in Giannis, in Dame. It's just not a good combination. When you take players like that, there's not enough possessions in a basketball game for those two types of players to win a championship.
Very similar to the Suns in that way.
Yep.
A lot of players, not enough possessions. Some teams I'm looking at, Magic, just not offensively efficient enough. Pacers, flip side, not defensively efficient
But
enough.
it's the young that, like, they could run a team out of the gym.
And I think they could absolutely
Right.
win a game. Or
The Knicks
win
are a
2
better
games.
team than the Magic, you would say, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But the Magic could beat the Knicks. 100%.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean the
Absolutely.
Magic would get out of the second round, but they could totally take down a New York team.
Absolutely, and it's because in these 7-game series, and they're not set to make a long playoff run, but they can certainly steal a series from a much better team because of that offense. So as far as championship woes go, it's not going to happen there. But that being said, they do have a shot to take down a team like the Knicks, like the Cavs, like the Magic.
For the same reason
just
you don't
early
want to
on.
play the Heat, you don't want to play a team like the Magic or the Pacers because they will run you out of the gym. If you, let's say you beat the Magic, you beat the Pacers, going into round 2, you're exhausted. You're gassed.
Yep.
Not a team you want to play because by that point you feel like you've already played 3 or 4 rounds.
Yeah. I do want to quickly mention this because it's a hot topic right now, but Bronny James entering the draft and the portal, big move. Do we think anyone is going to take a chance on him?
We don't know. It's LeBron is keeping it very close to the vest right now, intentionally. Right? He's talking with Rich Paul, his agent, and trying to figure out what the best way to go about this is. We know we've said for years, specifically the last few years, he's kind of taken about 8 to 10 months off from saying this, but he's always said, I want to play with my son. I'm going to play in this league until my son gets here. We haven't heard anything about it in a very long time. He's being very patient and very cautious. He is eventually going to come out with a statement and say, I'm leaving, I'm staying. He's got a player option this summer. He's probably going to decline it, see where he wants to go. Who knows? Whatever team drafts him might have LeBron in their hands. But LeBron's going to be the one that ultimately makes this decision. LeBron says, I'm not leaving the Lakers. Why should a team draft Bronny if he's not NBA ready?
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's not NBA ready. And there's a lot of reasons for that. He had an underwhelming
He's
start.
athletically ready.
He's athletic. He's a selfless passer, great defender. He just can't shoot the ball well. And he's got to take time to develop that shot. If this was any other player in college basketball, it would be a heartwarming story that he's even on the court. He had a heart attack before the season. For any other player, it's a phenomenal story that he's even playing college basketball. But that being said, because he's LeBron's son, the expectations are higher, the pressure's there. It's not fair to him. He needs some more time in college basketball to develop his shot, to game as an NBA player, to become NBA ready. And with that being said, he might be in a different position next year. 100%. Solid second-round pick next year. But right now, he's not ready. Just give him some time in college ball.
I know we have to go off the air soon. I got one question. Let's say LeBron says, I'm going wherever my son goes, right? Wherever team drafts my son, that's where I'm going this summer. Does whoever has the first pick, we're assuming it's the Pistons or the Wizards, do they take LeBron? Do they take Bronny first?
Absolutely not.
No?
Yeah, no chance. No chance. It's not worth it. At that point, you're sacrificing.
You guaranteed LeBron. You would do it?
You're sacrificing your future for a couple of days or for a couple of seasons at most of LeBron. Can't do it.
All right.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's edition of Rocky Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Next up, we've got Catherine at the Summit to talk about a little more women's basketball.
Welcome to the Summit, everyone. I'm your host, Catherine Ligon. Joining me is Alexi Cowan, Caitlin Gill, and Jordan Smitherman. This has been a historic season for women's basketball, as Sunday the South Carolina Gamecocks beat the Iowa Hawkeyes to complete their undefeated season. The game averaged 18.7 million viewers, making it the most watched women's basketball game ever. All that to be said, what were y'all's takeaways from this year's March Madness, and where do you see the women's basketball going from here?
Well, I think the first thing that we've all learned throughout this season of women's basketball is that women's basketball is good basketball.
Yes.
I mean, I think all the fans, no matter what they usually watch, they've learned that women's basketball is something interesting if you just find your key players and roll with it. Actually, one thing I thought was really cool, the women's NCAA finals got like 4 million more viewers than the men's, which impressed me, and it just shows how high caliber the women's basketball can be.
And not only did they beat the men's Final Four, that was more views. Let's also mention that they peaked at 21.4
Yes.
in the final
Very
minutes.
true.
So if we're going to go with their average, 18.7, that beat all the World Series games and all the NBA Finals games this year. So I had the same assumption. Women's basketball is finally back. Women are athletes as a whole, are finally getting the recognition they deserve. I mean, my entire childhood, I heard women's basketball isn't a sport. WNBA shouldn't be a league. It's not profitable. And now we see the potential. And all these stars players people are watching this year, they play in a few months. And I'm excited to see if it does translate. I think this draft will be super fun to watch. We have some of our own. I know they mentioned last segment Rakia really hasn't been getting screen time, but I think she's going to be one that pops up and people like a lot.
Now, I know that women's basketball is here to stay from this past group that we've seen with Clark, Angel Reese, etc. But like, I still think women's basketball will be as big, but obviously not as big as it's been this season because it's just been huge. But like the increased coverage and attention, like I think that'll stay. Like I think ESPN will continue posting about it. That won't stop. I just don't think there'll be the stars there. And you know what I thought about this week when going through women's basketball? Remember that weight room TikTok in like 2021 where it's like, oh, like this is the women's weight room compared to like the men's weight room? We have come so far since that moment.
That's true.
And to think that was only 3 years ago is crazy. Like that girl who made the TikTok does not get enough credit for like how she's grown the game. Like Caitlin Clark, yes, but the girl who made that TikTok.
Was it Sedona Prince? I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
she's coming
Yes.
back for sixth season for
Okay.
TCU.
Yeah, TCU had an interesting season.
Which is weird, her fall off too.
Yeah.
I feel like she was such a prominent player in getting those changes made,
Yeah.
and now people stop paying attention. She was also hurt all year.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I mean, we're about to talk about all the star power still there. So I think they got promise.
But I think she paved the way to be
Oh,
what women's
absolutely.
basketball is today. Because to have it, like I've seen all these tweets on my timeline to see like, oh, like these are for the girls who are like playing empty arenas, and it'd be like pictures of the full arenas, and it made my heart so happy. I was like, I'm so proud of them.
And
It's
you know, I
awesome.
think this year we focused a lot on the college side of women's basketball, but now all these girls are transferring into the
Yes.
WNBA, and so I think that's going to skyrocket
Yeah.
too. And then you have both places getting that view.
Yes.
So I'm excited to see what the WNBA does.
Yes, and I hope that the WNBA is like welcoming of the new girls.
it hasn't
Because
been.
like obviously like we've seen it like Diana Taurasi, like others have just not been welcoming of them. And I hope once as they get into the league, when they realize they're stars, it'll all come together because as women we should be uplifting each other, encouraging each other,
Exactly.
not bringing it down because you're just really good.
I do also understand the frustration on their end. They've been playing the game for a long time, and they've been hearing you're not as good as an athlete as if you were to play on the men's court. And the good thing is, I've seen a lot of debate whether they could be men's players. Glad they
Yeah.
aren't. They're two different leagues for a
For
reason.
sure.
Definitely.
It's their top of the game, what they're in, and that's all that really matters. But I do understand where the unwelcomeness comes from the WNBA. But once they start seeing, they already have
Yeah.
loyal fan bases.
Exactly.
And once they get that national in, I think it's going to be a
Yes.
I think, I totally think that we kind of mentioned this, like big name players, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and our own Rakia Jackson are all going to the WNBA. So that'll only, bring up their viewership. But going back to college ball, who do you guys see next year being the big players, filling those players' past shoes? What do you guys think?
Oh gosh. Well, Paige Beckers, I think she will kind of be at the top of the list this coming season just because she was really close to the top or at the top this year.
Totally.
And so for her senior year, I think she will easily be at the top and UConn will still be an elite team. I think South Carolina will be fine.
They're never going to
as long
They'll
as
be
Dawn
fine.
Staley's there,
Yeah,
they're
they're
going to be
not
there.
As long as
going
they're
away
fine.
anytime soon.
And I didn't know this, but a freshman had their number 1 points. Had
18 points, Tessa Johnson. She
And
was
I'll-
balling.
I know. And so I think they will be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For Tennessee, I think Caroline Strickland, Sarah Puckett, I'd like to see them pop off this year.
Yes.
I would very much so. And if we're starting with Tennessee, Jewel Spear, we still have yet to hear from you. So we're still up in the air. She's going to be our star player next year. I hope she stays.
Yes.
But in terms of people that impressed me during the tournament, I think we all can agree Hannah Stolke of
Yes.
Iowa was
Yes.
a big contributor. 23 points against UConn and 11 points and 2 blocks in the game against South Carolina. And in terms of who I think, not saying she's Caitlin Clark, obviously 2 different games, But who I think will have the Caitlin Clark effect
Yes.
is Juju Watkins.
Yes.
She has already been a star for USC. She broke their program record, men's and women's, for total points, 920 this year, and got Freshman of the Year. So I think in terms of who's going to draw people in, obviously Paige Beckers, Haley Van Lith is still there. But I think Juju is the future.
Yes, and I agree with you. Like Paige Juju, obviously, that's the obvious answer. Paige is already a proven star. She's overcome so much adversity. She was the top of her class. Like I remember when she was in high school in Minnesota. Then now she's back at the top. It makes me so happy for her. And then Juju, like you said, is the next face of women's college basketball. She broke the freshman all-time scoring record, and she's just so exciting to watch and is bringing all that excitement. But if you ask me, like who's like an under-the-radar duo for women's basketball, it's Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles for Notre Dame. Because Hannah Hidalgo was the ACC Freshman of the Year and averaged like 22 points a game, and she just has star potential in Notre Dame. And then Olivia Miles for Notre Dame. She missed this whole past year because she had a knee injury, but if she comes back, she averaged 14 points a game in the 2022-23 season. So if you put them together along with a Notre Dame team that finished 28-7, tied for second in the ACC, you can watch out for them too.
I think it'll be cool to see what teams pop up
Yeah.
too now that those big stars are leaving.
Yeah, that'll definitely open up some room for other teams. Some big news coming from the Lady Vols. On Sunday, Kim Caldwell was hired as the new head coach. There's been some mixed reviews about Caldwell's hire because of her lack of Division I experience. How do you guys feel about Kim Caldwell's hire, and what do you think she brings to the table as the head coach? Jordan, we'll start with you on the other end of the couch.
Okay, so I'm excited about Kim Caldwell. Like at first I was a little skeptical, but like I'm excited to see how it turn out. Danny White finally went outside the Lady Vol family.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was gonna do it, but I'm glad because it's good and he provides some good, fresh energy. It seems like Kim Caldwell has the right mindset. And the thing that stands out to me is she's a proven winner everywhere
Yes.
she's been.
Yes.
I mean, she took Marshall to new heights, won the regular season and the conference championship, had set the record for most wins in a season at Marshall with 26, was a constant winner at Glenville State where she was before this. So that stands out to me as well. And then a quote during her press conference that also stood out to me was, "I will never be Pat Summitt, but I will strive every day to be someone she's proud of." And I just feel like this is like the sign of like a new era because you had Kelly Harper and you had Holly Warlick who were Pat Summitt players and were just like mourning the legacy of Pat Summitt a little. And they were just like, oh, I'm going to try to be Pat Summitt because I played for Pat Summitt.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
that didn't really work out because we haven't had as much success since she left. Or like elite success, you know, like Elite Eight and all
Totally.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
But, like-
I wondered how much not Pat Summitt, I wondered how much Kim knew about Pat Summitt and the legacy that she has. And I actually got the opportunity to talk with Kim's mom today, and she had some really unique stories about Kim and how she looked up to Pat Summitt and
No
got to
way.
meet her when she was young.
Really?
So
No
she
way.
knows the legacy that she is
Really?
expected to uphold.
Dang,
And
that-
let's also acknowledge with Kim Caldwell, it's not a lack of coaching experience. D1, yes, sure. But in 1 year, she took
Yes.
Marshall to a 17-1
Yes.
record.
Absolutely.
And won, you said, Sun Belt Conference regular season and tournament titles. And then with her alma mater in Greenville State, she won 2022 Division National Champ and got Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
Pat Summitt Trophy.
The
this
Pat Summitt
girl
Award.
is proven it. She is
Yes.
up and coming. Sure, she hasn't coached in the SEC. Who cares? That's the story of successful coaches. You work from the ground up and you earn your right. And she's got grit, y'all. Like her
Yes.
energy.
She's ready. She made it
Yes.
known in that press conference that she wouldn't be here unless she was ready. And so
Yes.
I'm excited.
Absolutely. I think this year will be really interesting to watch, and hopefully the Lady Vols get back to another natty.
Attack
That would be
that
great.
portal.
We can do it.
Yeah, totally.
Go Lady Vols.
That's all we have for the summit. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Torch Sports. As always, go Vols.